Welcome to Collegial Conversations with your host, President of Intent Clinical, Diana Clark.
Hi, I'm Diana Clark, and this is Collegial Conversations. Today's guest is Andrew Drasen, the author of the brand new book, A Vision of Hope, A Story of Redemption and Purpose. And today we're going to tease out how the title came to be, how he wrote the book, and a little bit about the messaging of the book. It is more than a memoir. It's more than self-help. It is a combination of all kinds of wonderful things. And I'm really happy to have him on as a guest. Thank you for joining me today, Andrew.
Thanks for having me, Diana. It's great to be here.
Great. So tell us how you came to the title of A Vision of Hope. What was the title birth? Yeah.
Well, so when I wrote the book, it was so I spent my late teens and 20s battling addiction in and out of jail, prison, treatment centers. So that was a struggle for quite a while. I wrote the book during my last time being incarcerated and actually finished it 5 minutes before being released. So and I feel like the title is pretty apt. My story serves as a cautionary tale for folks who may be headed down that road, or it serves, as the name suggests, a vision of hope for people who are already there. For folks who are already dealing with addiction or mental health issues or incarceration or recidivism. Any of those kind of categories could definitely glean something from the book. And A Story of Redemption and Purpose, that's the subtitle, and that just kind of came about. At first it was a story of hope, or A Vision of Hope, the Andrew Drasen story, but I didn't really like that, and so I thought about the themes of the book, and that's kind of what came to be. So
Love
here
that.
we are.
I love that. So let's go back. Well, give us a few highlights of the darkness that you lived for those years. Give us a few bullets.
Yeah, I started smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol around 11 or 12. As a child, I dealt with, I don't want to call it instability, but there was substance abuse. My grandfather was a functioning alcoholic. My sister, during her teen years, dealt with addiction issues and would run away. And so, there was a lot of questions when I was young. Also dealt with some bullying from some school or from not school, some neighborhood kids. And I was overweight, I had self-image issues, a lot of self-doubt. Drugs kind of masked that for me. I sniffed my first Oxycontin at age 16, and I was hooked immediately. It was as if I was holding my breath my entire life and I was finally able to breathe. That's the best analogy that I have for it. So that's really what kind of started my decade plus long battle with opiates specifically. And so it turned into sniffing heroin by 19, shooting heroin by 20, prison by 23, go back to prison by 25. And it was a long battle. It wasn't until my final treatment in 2019 that I really kind of honed in some direction for my life and realized that I could have more. So um,
So that was 2019, and you wrote the book in prison. So
in 2019. So that, yep,
2019.
yep.
So did you go to the pokey before treatment or during treatment? Was it all combined? What was the
Well, so it was a couple of stints. My first stint I did 16 and a half months, and then I was out for 5 months. I was arrested again. I went back for 21 and a half months. So in 2019, that was the result of an overdose. I overdosed in my car and I was on probation at the time. So I was put on a probation hold and was given an inpatient treatment alternative to revocation. So instead of them sending me back to prison, they gave me another treatment. So I had time to do. And so that's when I decided to write the book. I considered writing a book for quite a while, and I found myself with the time and the will. So I decided to write it at that point.
was writing the book part of your sense of how you got well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it helped me to process a lot of things in my past that I hadn't fully processed yet, like the death of my father's mother, the death of my mother's father. I hadn't shed tears over either of their passings until writing that book. And it just allowed me to kind of relive everything and see everything through a different lens. So it was definitely a very cathartic process.
That makes sense. So you mentioned, and I ask this sensitively, but you mentioned that your first Oxycontin was like the first time you could breathe, that you've been holding your breath until it arrived. How do you live now as a man without that particular oxygen?
Well, I mean, as things progressed, as addiction does, it doesn't stay the same. It's a progressive illness. It got to the point where drugs do not work for me anymore. I will find death before I find peace in drugs. So it's coming to that conclusion, and okay, how do we live then? So um, and I mean, really, after my release, I mean, I did different things and associated with different people, and I kind of threw myself into work at the time, which helped me at the time. So, it was my previous relationship. I mean, that helped to kind of course correct and give me some direction. So there were a lot of factors involved.
Mhm, that makes sense. So what does your daily look like now? What
Now I'm preparing for launch. So actually have three books that are launching on December 2nd. There's the memoir, there's a reflections companion book, which distills the lessons learned and the wisdom gained through my experiences in the memoir. And then there's a workbook for practical application. So people can take my story and kind of look at their own lives. And I've actually developed a 90-day curriculum around the trio of books. And it doesn't actually even talk about drugs or alcohol one time and throughout the entire program. I feel like that's not the crux of a lot of our issues. I feel like it's our relationship with ourself, with the outside world, and with other people. So with where the curriculum kind of emphasizes, it's on identity restoration, cognitive restructuring, goal setting, action planning, and legacy framing. So at the end, it kind of zooms out and gets people to look at, how can I give back to my community? What kind of impact do I want to leave? What legacy do I want to leave behind for my family, and how do I want to be remembered? So
I love that. And I agree with you that substance use is a way of coping, it's a way of medicating, it's a way of, alleviating pain. And so, what do you do now to address pain when it surfaces? Because that's life, right?
I deal with it. I mean, there's no running from pain, and you're right. I mean, drugs and alcohol are a mask. I just didn't realize that they work so well that I depend on them for 15 years. But I've dealt with a lot of pain and lately, and I haven't. It's just not an option anymore. There's no we go through what we go through, and we're gonna feel what we feel, and there's nothing to do but to get through it. Um, and then it's not even just getting through it. It's kind of analyzing what we go through so we can learn and we can grow from it. So it's not just something that happens to us.
Right, right. So, the next question I had was, you have a workbook that works through the principles that you basically of your memoir and the sense of purpose. What would be a sample exercise? What would
So, here's just a couple of example exercises. So early in the memoir, because it tracks with the memoir and with the reflections book. So whatever someone is reading about, the questions are going to kind of pertain to that. So early in the book, I have chapters dedicated towards my mom and towards my dad. So in the workbook, for those chapters, one of the questions is write a letter to your mother and write a letter to your father of all of the things that you've never said. You don't have to send it, but the point is to write it and to get it out. So that will look different depending on who is writing the letter, in the content and the tone and, everything. But the point is to kind of work through those emotions and come to terms with our upbringing, our past, our traumas, and to accept that, what happens to us is just that, is something that happened to us. It doesn't define who we are.
We are. So, what's next for you?
Well, right now I'm deep into launch mode. With December 2nd coming around the corner, there's a lot to prepare for. I've also been reaching out to treatment centers and reentry programs about the curriculum, and I'm also filming the curriculum to be able to offer it virtually via school. It's just like a learning and community platform. So and kind of the point of that is there's actually a few points. One, to be able to extend offerings to allow for like a virtual aftercare or a virtual IOP option, maybe for folks who live in rural areas or maybe they're homebound, have young kids at home, and but they still want to grow and live intentionally. That it just provides more options, and I feel like that's never a bad,
Never.
as well as building community, because I know, like, for me, like, that was something that was difficult for me re-entering society, was finding a community. And when you're incarcerated, pretty much all of the association, not all, but a lot of them are going to be antisocial. They're not going to be positive. So it's just really, giving people a place to plug into, for growth, healing, and support.
Did you have to learn how to be a social person after that long journey of addiction?
Yeah, yeah. Because the drugs change you. It changes how you interact with people, and it puts blinders on us also. So we don't realize that it changes us until we're able to kind of get clear-eyed and look back and say, "Oh man, how was I acting?" But yeah, I feel like a lot of progression stops when you start using substances, because you stop processing things and analyzing and learning from them, and you just keep attaching that band-aid over and over and over. While in the meantime, the wound is festering underneath. So
That's right. So, if somebody on December 2nd picks up your book and the reflections and the workbook and they what is the thing that you hope that they will walk away with?
well, someone who goes through the workbook, and because those are kind of different questions for just a reader. I'd hope that they'd be inspired and see that no matter how far someone has fallen, that change is always possible, and that it can, maybe give them hope in their own situation. In someone who does the workbook, and or the curriculum, my thought is that by the end of it, they'll have a better idea of who they are, what they want their life to look like, with an action plan to create that reality, and an idea and a plan on how they want to give back to society.
Mhm. That's great. How does what you are doing and really the rubric you're following differ from, say, the peer-led, Alcoholics Anonymous or other 12-step programs?
Yep, that's a great question. One area where my program definitely differs from the AA and NA model is in the beginning of an NA or AA meeting, you say, "Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm an alcoholic, or I'm an addict." And I don't agree with that, because I feel like that is continuously attaching to that previous identity. And that the point is to be able to move past that. I feel like when we live intentionally, the drugs and the alcohol just naturally fall away as a byproduct. It becomes a waste of time, energy, effort, and resources. So I feel like by identifying as an alcoholic or an addict, we are just it's keeping us kind of rooted in the problem instead of trying to become who we are trying to be. So I feel like a better modality would be like, "Hi, I'm Andrew and I'm recovering," something along those lines.
Like the
Um,
movement that I'm hearing, yeah.
yep. And yeah, mine. like I said, with kind of another difference between their line of thinking and my line of thinking is they say that you have to turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand Him. I believe that God is within all of us, and that instead of looking outward, we need to look inward. And there are several Bible passages that support this. Also, Luke 17, verse 20-21 says, "The kingdom of God is inside of you." Thomas saying 3 said, if heaven were in the sky, the birds would get there first. If it were in the sea, the fish would get there first. It is inside and around you. So I feel like we need to stop looking outside for this outside entity to save us and work on saving ourselves.
Love that. I love that. I'm glad to know that there are multiple paths for people getting well, multiple paths. People are different and they're going to resonate with a different approach. And thank you very much for, providing a different pathway for those people who have been struggling. That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
And thank you for joining me today. I appreciate your conversation and love the idea that you're out there doing this work. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks so much, Diana. Great talking to you.
You too. For our listeners or watchers, thank you for joining us today. If you liked this, please give us a thumbs up on the Intent Clinical YouTube.